This is the way I describe it. It's the ivory tower.
Yeah.
And a bunch of people brought a bowl to the front door. And up in the top was Hillary Clinton, the Democrats, looking down, laughing and scoffing, sipping their wine.
Yeah.
And then the right-wing populists let go of the ropes, and the bull went boom right through the door.
Yeah.
And they've been screaming for years as the bull rampages around. But for the people down below, everything's getting better.
Yeah.
And so they're like, the way I describe it to like my progressive friends, I'm like, listen, man, that friend I was talking to you about who was telling me that they didn't think Trump could win, they hate Joe Biden. This my friend, she hates Joe Biden.
Okay.
She was saying Joe Biden's awful. They're corporate Democrats. They don't care. They're saying whatever they think people want to hear. And I said, let Trump clear out the ivory tower. Don't let the establishment back in, because they will lock the doors up, double barricade them, and you will never have another chance. Trump is rampaging around, and they're panicked, freaking out, falling apart. Joe Biden is crumbling, and they're losing control. Trump does 4 more years, and there will be no more Democratic establishment. There will just be the progressive populists and the right-wing populists, and then they won't be standing in your way. That's how I feel.
Yeah, I mean, I don't blame you. I'm trying to put myself in the shoes of a progressive activist too, and I think that's the other thing that's not lost on the progressives. Don't get me wrong, I think a lot's lost on them. But one of the things that's not lost on them is that like they're kind of corporatist overlords in Nancy Pelosi and Joe Biden and people who've been in Washington for 40 years. Like they don't actually care, right? And like they're really good at acting like they care. And I think Joe Biden, I think is someone who's really really good at expressing real. I won't assume malice here. Like I think he's really good at showing individual empathy. But I think it's really really hard to look at his voting record and say, yeah, you know what? This guy cares and has been fighting for everyday Americans. And I don't know who's been kicking around Washington as long as he has, who you can genuinely look at and say, you know what that person has done since day one? They've done the hard things. They've fought the fights. They've fought the unpleasant ones, other than, to be clear, Bernie Sanders, who I can't stand. But it's what he's done. He's done it.
So the reason why I want to bring up the story from the OC actress is because I watched the video, and I don't know if they pull up the exact quote, but one of the most interesting things she says, if you think that, she basically said you've got Joe Biden, Hillary Clinton, Kamala Harris, who have been in politics for decades. Yeah. They created the systemic racism you're complaining about. You can't vote for them and let them stay in. You're part of the problem. And that's how I feel about particularly Kamala Harris. Joe Biden, come on, 47 years, the crime bill. He did a bunch of really bad things he's been criticized for by a lot of people.
Including Kamala Harris.
And it's shocking to me that you have progressives that hate Trump more. It's like, but they're like, Trump's a fascist. It's the end of the world. I'm like, the corporate establishment types are telling you that because they don't want Trump to win. Trump is a lot of things. Trump is not a fascist. And Trump, in my opinion, I've often said, if you took a person identical to Trump and cleaned up the act, they'd win in a landslide.
Absolutely. If you took away all of the things that made him Donald Trump, the reality TV show star, right? The Billy Bush video, the marriages, the divorces, the comments about women, like the interview, like if you take him being the type of chummy guy who can go on Howard Stern and say some really vile, awful things and put like a little bit of makeup on it, you're right. You're right. I mean, he would run away. It wouldn't be close because there wouldn't be anyone. And like here, I'm not going to lie to anybody. I was a very never Trump guy in 2016 for mostly all of those reasons, right? I wanted someone with dignity and character and Christian values and respect and whatever. And whatever you think of Donald Trump, he's not those things.
No.
And if you could just kind of like take those little pieces and just stick them in here and stick them in there, you're right. It would be like Reagan. He'd win.
But compare him to Biden now.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the thing too. Like you look at Biden, and he walks the walk, he talks the talk, he does it well. He's a politician, and it's just that unfortunately what's going to happen to him is the same thing that happened with Hillary Clinton. Donald Trump is specifically designed. It's like he wasn't made in a lab to appease people like me. He wasn't made in a lab to appease a lot of different voters. But you know what he was made in a lab to do? His true superpower is he is a perfect foil for Joe Biden or Hillary Clinton or Kamala Harris or Nancy Pelosi or anyone who has spent too much time acting like a politician. He's perfectly built for it. You couldn't ask for anything else. And so the idea of the rock through a window makes so much sense, I think, to millions and millions of Americans, because they look and they're like, you know what, fine. Well-dressed, nice talking Joe Biden, fine. I'm sure I would like to sit down and have a fireside chat with him. But if I want to get something done, he's got 47 years and hasn't done it.
There's so many different things about Trump that push him over Joe Biden. It's like one way I can describe it is you got Sleepy Joe and you got bombastic Trump. But if you're talking about foreign policy, defending this country, then you've got the big bully who pushes everyone around and won't shut up. or the guy who's very, sleepy.
Yeah.
The people who are going to be focused on military strength are going to look at Trump and be like, I would like the bully to work for me.
Yeah.
If you've got people who want just trade deals and trade arrangements, why would they go for Joe Biden, who the Obama administration was pro Trans-Pacific Partnership?
Yep.
Bernie Sanders was against that. So the populist left and right agree on these trade agreements.
Yeah.
But when I said compare Trump to Biden now, I'm saying just like across the board, Biden doesn't cut it. He's bottom tier. And it's due to a lot of things. I mean, first of all, Biden's history is really bad.
Yeah.
The things he's voted for, the things he's said, and his past gaffes, his lies, he's been called out for. But now he's also he needs to retire.
Yeah.
With all due respect, Joe Biden is well past his prime a long time ago.
Yep.
And seeing some of the things he tries to say, what gets me is how the journalists complete his sentences for him. When he tries giving out an idea and then he fumbles and says gibberish, they'll actually write a complete sentence.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you can't do that. He didn't say that.
It's insane. It's insane.
He didn't say that. So you look at Donald Trump, and I look at Joe Biden negotiating with many of the progressives, and he's not giving them everything they want.
Right.
But he's doing enough, while also, I think, the town hall the other day, he was kind of throwing him under the bus, showing that it was the whole thing was a lie, right?
Yeah.
Basically, he was like, we're pro these progressive things we're going to fight for with Bernie Sanders, and then came out and said, no, screw all that. We're here for Pennsylvania, and we're going to get
exactly.
We're going to get what they want.
And he does this too. So one of the more interesting ones I think lately has been fracking. So
exactly, that's what I was.
So
yeah.
Biden has flipped I think 4 times now in the last couple of weeks about fracking. And so originally his position was he was pro fracking. He understands it's important. You're in a place like Pennsylvania, like this is important jobs. It's low cost energy. There's a lot of different benefits to it. 1, 2. Then he got asked by the progressives, and they were like, he's like, oh, well, no, there's no place for
right.
fossil fuels. He was asked in an interview. And then a journalist clarified. Somebody had to ask him a follow-up question, like, well, what does that mean for fracking? And he's like, we won't have that in a Biden administration. And then he came back, he walked it back again and said, oh, no, like he was speaking Pennsylvania or something, and so he's got it. And the thing is, the journalists give him cover.
Every time.
There's no PolitiFact. There's no 4 Pinocchios for these sorts of things. They're bald-faced, obvious lies that none of the people whose most important job to the American people, which is to call out lies, all of a sudden lose interest in.
Yeah, and I think about all the people who are watching YouTube. When I was talking to those dentists, well, I shouldn't say I was talking. I was going, all right, getting dental work done.
It was like Biden talking.
But these are people talking about the YouTube videos they watched. And that's why they go after YouTube. That's why they're pro-censorship.
Yeah.
It's really crazy. A lot of people have been getting knocked off YouTube and various social media platforms in the past couple of weeks. It's been intense. And this is something we all predicted. If you thought 2018 was bad, wait until the presidential election. They have to get rid of every single conservative, every single right-wing pro-Trump. And I'm surprised I'm still here, to be honest. Although, we got a cat. He's going to steal your water.
That's okay.
I hope
we can share water. We can share water.
But yeah, I noticed that most of the people I talk to that have flipped for Trump, they're people who tell me they started to do their own research. Every single story I hear from someone who walked away from the Democratic Party, it's very simple. They said, I heard all of these things, I believed them, and then one day I decided to do my own research. And then I watched, a lot of people are like, I watched one Trump speech and then realized, hey, wait a minute.
Yeah.
Everything they said was a lie.
Yeah, and these things slowly unravel too. So I think for me, one of the big moments was it was the Steele dossier, right? And so I remember when it first came out, everyone was in uniform agreement. You got this dirty dossier, like, oh, Trump's finished. There's all these problems, blah 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 blah. And I bought it. I looked at it and I was like, oh wow, like MI5 guy, like he's well respected, whatever. I'm sure he's great, fine. And I bought it, and I remember I peeled back one day. Because it was when the story came out that someone had alleged that Trump had been a Russian asset since 1987. I was like, all right, this is my moment. I was like, hands up, I can't. No.
No way.
I'll believe a lot of things that may not make a lot of sense, but this is not one of those such things. And I think you did. You have a lot of people who are asking a lot of questions. I think there's a lot of good work on the right of people who are submitting FOIA requests and who are asking the right questions. And so because of that, you do start to have people who get this information that filters through and starts to break through the lockdown that you have that is mainstream media.
When I was talking to my progressive friend, she was giving me all of the mainstream media talking points that were devoid of any fact or reason.
Yep.
And we had a good conversation. I consider her to be a good friend. It was really amazing to me, actually, that she could believe a lot of things she did, supporting critical race theory, disagreeing with Trump, defending some of the things said by a lot of these far leftists. And we had a discussion and an argument about it. But she said a couple things. Like, for one, she said Kyle Rittenhouse is a white supremacist who traveled across state lines to hunt down peaceful protesters. And I was like, whoa. And so I think if you're coming from politics from this point of view, based upon the mainstream media's lies.
Yep.
And I say mainstream media, it's really hard to break down. It's political operatives who work within media.
Good point. Yeah.
Because I still use the New York Times for sourcing in many different instances. Yeah. He really wants your water.
I know. He's very, very committed. I'll put it here so he can have some.
He can't get to it.
Oh yeah, that's right. He's not gonna get in there. But yeah, I mean, I hear you, and like I agree. And don't forget, for Rittenhouse, it wasn't just your progressive friend. Like Ayanna Pressley said that, right? And so I think it is very, very easy. I know it's tough.
He's gonna knock it over.
It can be really easy. You repeat something even devoid of any facts or meaning. You repeat it until it becomes true for all intents and purposes, right? And so if you keep repeating the idea that the Steele dossier is credible, or you keep repeating over and over again that Rittenhouse is a white supremacist, all you have to do is say it enough times and eventually you get there.
I can't stop laughing because he's just jamming his face in the jar,
and it's just not quite gonna fit.
This is why we let him on the show, because he's the comic relief for all the despair and violence.
And we could use that today. I mean,
seriously. No, I did think about it. A lot of people are like, it's always, news is always such a downer. It's always so negative. No, he'll knock it over. He'll just give him a little. Just don't let him spill it.
Yeah.
So, and anyway, to clarify my point in the mainstream media. Like I was saying, there's a lot of sources that I still use, but you have to be very careful. You got to fact check it. Mm-hmm. But if you start your political journey specifically from, I read a story that said Kyle Rittenhouse is a white supremacist, well, then you're going to agree with critical race theory.
Right.
So one of the things she said to me was, don't you realize that there's like a very serious problem with police targeting minority communities? And I said, let me ask you a question. And I'll ask you this question. Mm-hmm. Do you know how many unarmed black men were shot and killed last year?
Is it 8?
13.
Ah, okay.
And then I said, do you know how many police interactions there were?
Right.
My understanding is there was 375 million. So out of all of those interactions, 13 unarmed people dead, I will tell you this. Those are individual cases that need to be explored to make sure there was no wrongdoing, because
Absolutely.
A loss of life is one of the most egregious violations of civil liberties and civil rights. But it doesn't sound to me like there is this massive widespread problem.
Right. Or like I think it was LeBron James was the one who had the great quote where he said it's open season on black men in America. Right. And there's this narrative of, not only is it's open season on black men in America, and police and white people can kill black people without consequence and without issue. That's just not true. Right. Like,
No,
there's
not at all.
no reading of the literature that can make that a point that can be justified and stand on its own. Like it's an absurd thing. It's a conspiracy theory, but it just gets repeated so many times that people are like, oh yeah, like of course there are, because the numbers don't matter.
One of the things I like to bring up all the time, even though it feels fruitless, like pointless, is that they complain all day and night about QAnon. And, Alex Jones, he gets banned from the internet, all of these things. Yet they screech. So you were referring to Jonathan Chait on MSNBC when he said, Chris Hayes, the famous Chris Hayes, millions of followers, has a guy in his show who says, now we can't prove this, but Donald Trump may have been a Russian asset since the 1980s. And I just started laughing. I'm like, you really believe this stuff? Listen, man, and the moon could be made of cheese.
Yes, exactly.
Like, okay, listen. Could Donald Trump be a Russian asset? Yes, he could. It is in the realm of reality, unlike the moon being made of cheese. I'll give him that one.
Fine.
But to start from, in order to get that far, I got to tell you, man, 9/11 as an inside job sounds much more plausible than Donald Trump secretly working as a Russian agent to subvert America.
Right. And having it succeed, right? Like the premise of what Jonathan Chait is saying is that we live in a universe where for the last, 33 years, the Russians, the Soviets, whose entire country then disbanded, and they kept this act up, they managed to move along this Manchurian candidate through the New York City celebrity scene, and then eventually run him for president and have him win the presidency almost 40 years later. Like, do these people hear themselves even a little bit? Like,
dude,
it's so far beyond the realm of possibility that, and if you want to make the QAnon comparison too, the idea that there is a global cabal of people, wealthy people, particularly liberal donors, who are raping and assaulting children is a lot more believable. I think there's a lot more evidence on the books that is something that exists than Trump being a Russian asset.
Now, to go to the more extreme elements of some of these conspiracies about like the Satanist and weird occult stuff, it does get into the crazy realm, for sure. But look, we've got a dude who had an island, And he had a lot of friends in a lot of high places who traveled to that island. And we know about this. We have witness testimony. A witness claimed Bill Clinton had visited the island. So there actually is court documents and witness testimony saying, hey, this stuff might be happening. Now, of course, you might get conspiracy theorists who take that and turn it into this ridiculous and more extreme conspiracy about, superhero Trump fighting an evil globalist cabal or whatever.
Yes. With tiny breadcrumbs. It's like iRobot, right? Like these tiny little breadcrumbs that lead you to the conclusion, and only if you're paying close attention.
But it is, you are correct. It is absolutely correct to say that the Russiagate conspiracy stuff is a full order of magnitude more insane.
Yeah.
And it's still, Adam Schiff just tweeted, we got a new whistleblower complaint about Russian interference and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, here we go again.
Yeah.
It's nonstop with these people about the conspiracy theories. They make things up. They push them with impunity.
Right.
Because they control the media. And everyone just reacts to whatever the media says. And what I mean by the media, I just mean high-profile news organizations like the New York Times. Tom Cotton writes an op-ed saying, send in the troops. They write multiple apologies. Then there's a staff revolt. Then the guy resigns. The editor resigns. Do you see the thing about Newsweek where this professor wrote that Kamala Harris might not be eligible for the office?
I did see that, yeah.
And then Newsweek issued, I think, like 7 apologies.
I believe that. I totally believe that. They pulled down real quick.
They were like, editor's note. We did not mean to imply. Editor's note again. We really feel editor's note again. Editor's note again. And then finally they did a whole new write-up explaining the conversation because they got attacked by leftist activists.
Yep.
Thanks for checking out this clip from the Timcast IRL podcast. We do the show live Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. So come back to check us out when we go live. Don't forget to subscribe, hit the like button, hit the notification bell, and we are also available on all podcast platforms for free if you want to listen to us there. Thanks for hanging out, and we will see you all next time.